Hey there. This is Sally's Book Talks. Tune in daily for global literary gems, handpicked just for you. Today we're diving into the second part of The Story of Philosophy by renowned American scholar Will Durant. In our previous episode, we explored philosophy's origins, discussed ancient Greek philosophers, and examined thinkers like Bacon, Spinoza, and Voltaire. His concluding part will cover three main sections. One, the great Immanuel Kant. Two, 19th century philosophical luminaries. And three, a brief look at modern Western philosophy. Now let's dive into today's analysis. How do we characterize Kant's position in philosophical history? Simply put, though living in the 18th century, his ideas dominated 19th century thought. In 1781, Kant published his seminal work, Critique of Pure Reason. This established critical philosophy's dominance in European thought. Even today, Kant's principles remain axiomatic truths. Schopenhauer remarked, "Those unversed in Kant's work remain intellectual children." Yet Kant's dense writing challenges even professional philosophers. To better understand Kant, let's examine his historical context. Earlier, we discussed Bacon and Voltaire's contributions. Bacon pioneered scientific methodology, while Voltaire epitomized Enlightenment rationality. He believed science and logic could solve humanity's problems. Meanwhile, Spinoza challenged biblical authenticity. This intellectual climate weakened religious faith, elevating rationalism. Kant faced dual challenges: rescuing religion from rationality and science from skepticism. His critique of pure reason masterfully resolved these dilemmas. Now let's explore Kant's philosophical framework. Before Kant, skeptic philosopher David Hume attempted to prove neither mind nor science truly existed. He believed the mind was merely combinations of ideas. Those phenomena we consider necessary were actually accidental occurrences. His arguments nearly destroyed theology and science at the time. But Kant struck at the heart of Hume's arguments. Kant argued human understanding isn't merely accumulated sensory experiences. Hume's premise was fundamentally flawed. For instance, we need eyes to develop visual experience. Can we see through our mouths? Obviously not. The act of seeing involves sensory accumulation, but first requires the pre-existing visual organ, our eyes. The eyes themselves aren't experiential products, yet crucial to perception. Thus, Kant concluded some knowledge exists independent of sensory experience. Certain truths precede experiential accumulation. This is a priori knowledge, prior to experience. The term a priori means knowledge existing before experience. Take 2 plus 2 equals 4. We memorize it through experience. But wasn't it true before our birth and any experience? Such truths exist independent of human experience. How then does this necessary truth establish itself? Why must 2 plus 2 equal 4? Here Kant introduces the mind's role. 2 plus 2 equals 4's necessity arises from our mind's inherent structure. While life changes and memories fade, the mind's architecture remains fixed, like physical organs. The mind isn't abstract, it actively organizes sensory inputs, just as eyes process vision and tongues taste. By what principles does the mind process sensations? Kant believed time and space are a priori frameworks, existing prior to experience. Without them, sensory data couldn't become conscious perception. Without them, human existence itself would be impossible. Kant's philosophy remains profoundly complex, regardless of interpretation. Following this logic, Kant rescued science from skepticism's grip. He developed transcendental dialectics and the concept of antinomies, his deepest critique of human reason. What are antinomies? Person A claims the universe is infinite, timeless, and boundless. Person B counters the universe has temporal beginning and spatial limits. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's rational? Who's irrational? Neither. Both reach logical conclusions through reason. Our a priori limitations prevent transcending experiential understanding. As space-time bound beings, we cannot conceive beyond space-time. Antinomies represent fundamentally unsolvable contradictions. When reason exceeds innate boundaries, contradictions emerge. This applies equally to religious discourse. Rational theology attempts proving God's existence and free will. Kant reminds us terms like matter, spirit, necessity carry inherent limitations. How can limited language probe infinite divinity? Religion cannot be proven through theoretical reason. Religion persists not through truth claims, but moral framework provision. Thus, Kant reestablished foundations for both science and religion. After this analysis, you might pity these rescued domains of thought. From childhood, we embrace science passionately, believing it will unlock the universe's mysteries. Kant reveals our explorable world is predetermined by a priori structures. Attempting to transcend limitations inevitably leads to antinomies. Yet, in religion, concepts like ultimate freedom and divine benevolence captivate believers. Kant argues these can't be rationally proven, disheartening science and hollowing theology. Contemporary German priests showed contempt by naming their dogs Kant. Now let's examine another philosophical giant. Kant's ideas dominated 19th century philosophy, profoundly influencing Hegel's systems. Durant portrays Hegel as a relic of Romanticism, an outdated figure. His phenomenology of spirit remains notoriously challenging to comprehend. Let's understand Hegel through an anecdote. Hegel once competed with a monk to summarize Christianity versus philosophy in one sentence. The monk offered, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." Guess Hegel's response? "I lose. No sentence can encapsulate philosophy." 10 volumes might barely suffice. This reveals Hegel's human side. What about his philosophy? He focused on relational dynamics, identifying opposition as fundamental. All ideas and entities eventually confront their opposites, merging into higher syntheses. This dialectical movement shapes Hegel's worldview. Thus, historical development follows conflict-driven patterns, which leads to familiar conclusions about resolving contradictions. Conflict drives historical progress, a revolutionary conclusion indeed. In later years, Hegel's philosophy grew conservative, advocating peace and stability. His disciples split. Moderates following older Hegel, e.g., Fichte Jr., radicals embracing young Hegel, Feuerbach, Marx, developing class struggle theories. Now let's examine Schopenhauer. 18 years Hegel's junior, this influential German philosopher pioneered pessimism. His magnum opus, The World as Will and Representation. Schopenhauer's era saw widespread European pessimism. The French Revolution's failure crushed youthful ideals. Napoleon's exile and Bourbon restoration left war-torn Europe stagnant. Pessimism dominated arts. Byron, Heine, Chopin, Beethoven. Goethe lamented, "The world declines. Thankfully, I'm old." Schopenhauer's family life proved equally bleak. His father's suicide at 17 left him with a famous novelist mother, liberal, volatile, and arrogant. Inheriting her arrogance, their clashes grew violent. When Goethe predicted young Arthur's greatness, it intensified their rivalry rather than healing wounds. "Two geniuses can't share one roof," the mother declared. During one fight, she pushed him down the stairs. Schopenhauer retorted, "History will remember you through me." Maternal hatred amidst societal collapse shaped his pessimism. His personality, arrogant, melancholic, misanthropic, paranoid tendencies emerged. Armed sleep, barber avoidance, noise intolerance. Thus Schopenhauer lived in rural isolation, writing his philosophical works. When Berlin University invited him to lecture, he deliberately scheduled classes against Hegel's. Remember, Hegel was then the academic superstar of his age. Not a single student attended Schopenhauer's lectures. Furious, he resigned and viciously criticized Hegel in his writings. Though unlikable, Schopenhauer lived comfortably on inherited wealth. Never forget Schopenhauer's core concept, the will to life. He rejected rational animal theories. Reason isn't humanity's essence. What lies beneath rationality, will, and desire? How do you truly persuade someone? Can logic alone convince? Never. Reason merely serves desires. You must appeal to primal urges. Consider endless wars throughout history, past, present, and future. Humans always compete for resources, mates, property, across all eras. How many centuries have passed? I want no change. Can't rational beings reflect? We do reflect, yet conflicts and atrocities persist. Schopenhauer concludes, we're pushed by will, not pulled by reason. Simply put, we're ruled by instinct. Will constitutes human essence, striving for survival and fulfillment. Existential struggle, death is will's eternal foe. Reproduction, its weapon against mortality. Thus, love becomes nature's deception. Marriage, merely species preservation. If will constitutes human essence, suffering becomes inevitable. Why? Will implies endless desires, few ever satisfied. Fulfilling one desire breeds 10 new ones. Life becomes endless chasing. Exhaustion, pain, dissatisfaction. Stopping brings boredom, craving new distractions. New desires mean fresh suffering begins. Even utopians would remain miserable. Thus, Schopenhauer's bleak conclusion. Life swings like pendulum between pain and boredom. Human misery also stems from perpetual war for resources, ultimately futile. At best, delaying inevitable death. Life becomes tragic failure. No true happiness exists. Theology escapes death, madness escapes pain, suicide the final refuge. But suicide only conquers individual will. Humanity's tragedy continues. This forms Schopenhauer's philosophical core. Blending Kantian philosophy with Buddhist influences, ultimate wisdom, achieve nirvana by minimizing desires, surrender to existence, to end humanity's suffering, cease reproduction. Imminent extinction becomes final solution. Thus, Schopenhauer's bleak prescription. Durant notes, Schopenhauer's misery shaped his philosophy. He hated women, rejected marriage, condemned parenthood, unaware these bring others joy. Having explored Schopenhauer's pessimism, now let's briefly discuss the father of social Darwinism, Herbert Spencer. We're somewhat familiar with Darwin's theory of evolution, survival of the fittest. Species gradually evolve through natural selection. This theory caused seismic shifts in 19th century thought. Spencer realized evolution applied beyond biology to cosmos, society, and morality. His evolutionary formula shocked European intellectuals. Evolution progresses from simple to complex, dispersed to unified. Degradation reverses this process towards simplicity and dissolution. Spencer believed life constantly adapts to environment, but overlooked life's transformative power on environment itself. This capability we better understand through Marx's works. Spencer also pioneered positivism, emphasizing empirical phenomena over metaphysics. Darwinism's emergence buried old religious-dominated eras. Why did outdated systems persist? Traditional morality temporarily propped up crumbling structures. But survival of the fittest concepts eroded these foundations. Nietzsche delivered the final blow. In life's struggle, we need power, not virtue, pride, not humility, self-interest, not altruism. Democracy hinders progress. Geniuses represent evolution's purpose. The mediocre masses deserve elimination. Power, not justice, determines fate. Schopenhauer's will to life versus Nietzsche's will to power. Passive pessimism transformed into active courage. Christianity fails, justifying struggle. Darwinism and Nietzsche succeed. Nietzsche believed morality and theology must be rebuilt through evolutionary theory. Life's purpose isn't to protect the masses, but cultivate exceptional geniuses as humanity's evolutionary path. His masterpiece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, declared God is dead, one of the 19th century's greatest works. And humanity's evolutionary goal is becoming a Superman, Übermensch. Nietzsche viewed Christian morality as slave morality, promoting obedience while valuing Roman virtues like courage and audacity. Man is something to be overcome. Our lives are stepping stones towards superhuman evolution. He offered not dogmatic philosophy, but new poetry and quasi-religious vision. Plagued by illness and isolation, he descended into madness before dying in 1900. Having explored Kant, Hegel, Schopenhauer, Spencer, and Nietzsche, the 19th century's philosophical constellation, we now examine modern philosophy's essence as briefly covered in the book. Modern philosophy reflects struggle between physics and psychology. Traditional philosophers like Descartes started from self-modern materialism, reverses this approach. Industrialization and physics reshaped philosophy with materialist momentum. Bertrand Russell, 1872 to 1970, British logician and philosopher, exemplifies this era. Durant portrays Russell as rigorous logician pioneering mathematical logic. But what is mathematical logic? Simply studying logic through mathematical methods. Russell saw mathematics as supremely precise and beautiful truth. He advocated prioritizing science over classical arts and education. Observing modern universities' STEM human humanities balance shows Russell's educational influence succeeded. Russell blamed humanity's suffering on mysticism, vagueness, and unclear thinking. He deemed clear thinking morality's first law. Many saw Russell as walking mathematical formula, somewhat humorless. Durant countered Russell mastered metaphysics and mathematics with profound human compassion. Notably, Russell lectured in China for a year in 1920 at Liang Qichao's invitation. The book concludes with contemporary American philosophers, then modern in Durant's time. These figures now belong to modern philosophical history. Pragmatism's leading exponent, John Dewey, Durant's teacher, concludes the work. Dewey, 1859 to 1952, embraced naturalism and evolution, rejecting metaphysics. He dismissed Schopenhauer's pessimism, continuing Bacon-Spencer empirical tradition, ethical framework. Dewey considered development humanity's highest virtue. Goodness requires capability. Kind incompetence remains worthless. Ignorance isn't bliss but slavery, only wisdom empowers destiny. Unlike most discussed philosophers, Dewey defended democracy despite flaws. Aristocracy works better but proves more dangerous than democracy. Dewey advocated decentralized pluralistic social order. Multiple coexisting entities, parties, unions, corporations, reconciling individual collective conflicts. This concludes our exploration of the story of philosophy. In our analysis, we focused on Kant's philosophical contributions and explored ideas from Hegel, Schopenhauer, Spencer, and Nietzsche. Finally, we briefly examined key modern Western philosophical concepts. Important, Durant deliberately avoids traditional chronological or geographical philosophical categorization. He instead crafts narratives around selected philosophers while analyzing their systems. Yet through these stories emerges philosophy's essential historical progression. This concludes our journey through the story of philosophy. Full notes below. See you tomorrow.